going to be talking about tree pose, which is one of the iconic yoga poses. You often see people photographed standing in tree. So let's take a look at tree pose. So first of all, you'll transfer your weight into one leg. That's going to be your trunk. Think about growing roots down through your feet. So feel the 3 points of your feet, center of your heel, and the ball of your foot on the big toe and the baby toe side. And then this other leg, we're going to come into hip flexion and rotation and bring the foot to the side of the leg. Yeah. And so there are a number of different ways that you can come into this pose, which I just showed you one. Up, rotate, foot comes in. You can also keep the foot at the side of your leg, and then it's right there. You can rotate your leg, bring it up, or you can do kind of any number of other things. And it's kind of nice to play around with different ways to move into that shape, because we need to be able to move in all kinds of different ways. So we looked at what the pose is. So let's look at some of the things that we want to be aware of coming into tree pose. So one is the shift of weight. So that leg should just gently become supportive. We want to watch for kind of dumping in the hips. You can see now I've changed how my leg and pelvis relate, how my pelvis relates to my rib cage. My spine's kind of off. So we're going to try and keep stable in this leg, a little bit soft in the knee, feel the foot. Yeah. Now, as the leg comes up, we want to watch that the hip isn't rising with the leg, right? And that can just speak to how well the leg is moving in the pelvis. So that's one thing to look for. That's why I like to keep my hands on my hips as the leg comes up, just so I can kind of monitor that. Another thing to be aware of is as the leg rotates, depending on the amount of rotation you have in your hip, at a certain point, the leg stops rotating. If you push it further, then what happens is the pelvis starts to rotate. So you can see here that my pelvis is shifting on my leg bone and my torso is coming along, so I've got some strain here in my hip. What can also happen is the pelvis moves and the torso doesn't. And now I've got some twisting happening through here, and actually I can feel a little strain through my back. Yeah. So maybe moving only in a range where none of that happens. The hips just stay nice and neutral. There's no twisting. There's no gripping. Another thing to be aware of, I know a lot of people like to reach down and take a hold of their leg and bring it up. So not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with any of these things, except that they tend to create some extra strain. What I find with coming down is I've lost my upper body now, and it becomes really easy to change what's going on at my hip, my spine, and I'm sort of wedging my footing here. So again, nothing wrong with that, but consider maybe trying bringing the leg up on its own and letting it come only as high as your muscles can do the work. Just maybe sometimes, yeah? Oh, one other thing to look for is as you come into the pose, what's going on here? So can you let your breath be easy? Can your ribs be easy? We want our torso, our core to be responsive so we can shift our balance as we need to, yeah? We can recover. If we're tight, then it becomes hard to breathe and we add more tension and stress and load, which can actually be counterproductive. It can make it harder to balance because we don't have that ability to shift and move. So that in mind, if you're finding tree pose kind of challenging, a few things that you can do. One is just really work with shifting your balance, right? If you're finding balance to be a challenge. You can keep your toes on the floor. You don't have to bring the foot up the leg, and it doesn't really matter how high up the leg it goes anyways. You can use something like a chair or the wall to give you a little bit of balance, but you notice I'm not leaning on the chair. I've got just my fingers, and then gently you can start to bring less and less weight on the chair until you can take your hand away. Not this. Yeah, yeah, nice and easy. Yeah, good. And if you want to make things more challenging for yourself, well, you can do that by adding some instability under your foot. So my foam block is less stable than my wood floor. Or I have a blanket. Sand, you might have a wobble board. So that's one way. Another way is to shift your gaze around. So your eyes and your ears, of course, have a lot to do with your balance. So as you move your gaze around, it's going to be harder to balance. Conversely, if you're gently focused on a single point, that might help you. And then and I mentioned with the eyes, you can also close your eyes. That can be really challenging. Woo, there we go. You can add movement, right? You can come into a side bend, you can just move your arms around, and honestly, you can put your arms anywhere you like, right? Doesn't matter. And moving them around can challenge you, because in the end, we want to be able to find and refine our balance. We want to be able to deal with walking on uneven surfaces or slipping on the ice and being able to recover without falling. Yeah, and so you can see that if I was really stiff and held, that when I fall, it becomes harder for me to recover. Yeah. So there's a few things about tree pose. I'm going to make another video about some other movements that you can do if you're finding, you're having trouble with the hips and pelvis, or the legs not moving well in the hip socket. We'll try those, but have fun growing your tree.